Meeting to order. It's 1:32 p.m. Ms. Huerta, please call the roll.
President Lee Trujillo.
Present.
Member Scott Harris.
Present.
Leah Oliveri. Diana Summers.
Present.
Robert Tamez. I didn't hear you, but I know you're here. John Valls. Alan Wilson.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. I'd like to take a minute real quick to extend our condolences to Mr. Valls and the passing of his mother, Olga Valls. John, deep heartfelt condolences. Our prayers are with you and the family. Olga was a wonderful lady for all those who knew her. So appreciate you being here in these trying times.
Appreciate that. She was a pistol.
Yes. Would anyone like to make public comment? Ms. Huerta, have you received any public comment?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Have you all had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes, sir. Make a motion to approve.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Financial report, please, Ms. Heather.
Good afternoon, Board and Chairman. Heather Hurlbert, Director of Finance. Next slide, please. Well, the year just keeps marching on, so we'll be presenting the financial statements for the 5 months ended February 28th, 2022. So we began the year with a almost $7.7 million fund balance, and we have completed our financial audit for the year, so these are audited balances for the beginning fund balance. Revenues year to date are almost $3.5 million. Our expenditures year to date are $245,000, leaving us with an ending fund balance as of February 28th of $10.9 million. Here is a brief summary of the breakdown between the affordable housing programs, the economic development programs, and the street programs, which we'll go into in more detail in the subsequent slides. Next slide, please. So in our affordable housing, we have $1 million worth of expenses programmed for this year for programmatic expenses, leaving us with an estimated $1.2 million for fund balance at the end of the year. The two programs that we have for this fiscal year is the Salvation Army program. I know that they just, I believe, finished compliance, so we should be paying that out soon if we haven't already, since we are just a couple of months behind on the financial. We lag on when we present the financial statements. And then we have the $500,000 for the infill housing incentive program, which is the first year of the 2-year program for $1 million. Next slide, please. For economic development, we do have multiple projects that we've awarded, and we continually monitor these. I think right now we may go ahead and the South Texas Botanical Gardens may shift from payout in fiscal year 22 to possible payout in fiscal year 23, but I think everybody else is on track to be paid out as shown. We are looking at an ending fund balance with assuming no additional awards of $7.6 million, our economic development. That does include the $2.5 million, which is being paid back from the loan to the streets funding.
Okay. We have a question, Mr.
Sure.
Valls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Heather, on the Botanical Gardens, that
Yes.
$89,000.
Yes.
Is that for the walkway that we contributed to?
My
They wanted to develop a walking path, and they
Exactly.
needed some funding to help complete the
Exactly. So
project.
my understanding what that is that, so they have already begun that project, and what they are wanting to use this money for is actually matching funds. They're in the process of applying for some additional funds to finish out the project, and so they have been holding on to those as potential matching funds to get those grants. So that's the latest update that we received from them.
Okay. Well, we awarded that probably maybe 3 years ago?
It's been several years, yes.
Ballpark. So how long can we keep pushing this, fiscal year up and up and up, when we award it, we expect a certain timeline for it to be expended. Otherwise, we keep carrying it on our books for 3 years, 4 years.
Exactly.
Next year, it'll be fiscal year 23.
Exactly.
So do we have, Peter, some kind of a policy or a program where they have to spend it by a certain amount of time?
Well, we should in the contract. I don't know, do you know the status of that project?
I mean, that was a simple
Yeah.
walking trail where they were just throwing.
Right, yeah, they came and presented to the board
mulch
here.
down.
Yeah.
Let us get you a status of it and see,
Yeah.
and going forward, maybe our contract should include a timeline.
One of the issues, since you mentioned that, is I'm not sure if in our minutes, Ms. Huerta, if we approved those funds for a walkway. So if they're not going to be used for that, then we'd have to have
Sure. Sure.
bring it forth again
Sure.
for the motion for something else.
Yeah.
Right.
We approved it for a walkway because one of the concerns was that it wasn't ADA compliant. I think they were throwing mulch down or pea gravel
Yeah.
or something of that nature. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I can't recall what's in the contract. Let me pull it and I'll send it out to the board.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry?
Let me pull the contract and I'll send it out to the board this afternoon.
Yeah, because like Mr. Trujillo said, I mean, if we allocated it for a walking path, but yet they're going to hold on to it, well, they don't have the money yet. but
Exactly.
They're going to use it as a matching on a grant. Well, that's different. We may not be so inclined to fund them matching on a grant.
Yeah.
You're betting on the come.
Yeah.
So what if they don't get the grant?
Yeah, I can bring you a little bit more detail. That was the last time we asked, that was what the response was, but I can bring more detail back next month on this.
I mean, that's a nonprofit organization that has fundraiser after fundraiser, folks donating. So it's not easy for them to raise money, I understand, but when we give them a sizable amount,
Sure.
we expect them to use it. At least
Sure.
I do. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, somebody, Peter, just
Yeah.
look
Or
into
have
it.
someone from the Botanical Gardens come here and let us know.
Sure.
Yeah, we're
Sure.
gonna-
We can do
We
that.
may need a new motion if that's the case.
Exactly.
I'm not beating you up, I'm just,
Yeah, no, no,
you're
no.
the one at the podium, so
Okay.
thank you for that, I
Yeah, we'll-
appreciate it.
We'll work with legal and look through that contract and then get in touch with the Botanical Garden to have them provide more comment on that.
Okay, thank you, appreciate
Sure.
it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, next slide, please. And then on our streets, we did have one project that was awarded for this year, which is the Elizabeth Street from
I'm
Santa Fe
sorry,
to Staples.
Ms. Heather,
Sure.
one more.
Can you go back just a little bit?
I sure can. Can you go back one slide, please? There we go.
The other projects.
The next sports has to be soccer complex, right?
That is correct, yes.
Is there a status report on that one?
Can you turn your mic on, please, Mr. Vols?
Is there a status report on that one?
The last time, a couple of months ago, when we checked in with them, they had closed on the land, I believe. And I think they were in the process of the permitting, but we can, I think we should have a report coming from the regional EDC in the next couple of months, and so we'll make sure that they update you on all of those to get a little bit more detail.
Okay, thank you. And how about the Gablesano Executive 9? What's the status on that one?
They're moving forward, I believe that whole project is moving forward.
Okay,
Yeah, Commissioner Valls, what we'll do is for our next meeting in May, we'll have a status report on each one of these projects for every fund type. We got the housing, the economic development, and the streets. So we'll bring a report on every one of the projects.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So
I
you can see,
appreciate that,
but
'cause I know
specifically,
that-
just, here for the Lozano, the design is fully done.
okay,
They missed because of certain issues. They missed the planting season for the grass, so that's going to get delayed till the fall. If they didn't plant it by a point in time in the spring, then they knew they'd have to wait to plant it in the fall when the weather's cooler. So it's going to cause a slight delay in the opening, but we'll have all that material for you in the May
okay.
agenda.
So they're not going to start planting until when? The fall?
I think it's going to be the fall now, right? I'm not sure what month that is, but
All you got to do is water it.
it's, yeah.
Okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
It's especially the Executive 9, because there's basically they're going to demolish that course. So it's mobilization, moving dirt, design.
Right.
It'll be some time before they start watering the Executive 9. I mean, and we're going to have a system in place for watering, right? We're not going to depend on Mother Nature.
Right, no, that's
for
part of the
Exec
problem
9.
with it today, is there is no irrigation system, so part of that 2.5+ million is for irrigation system as well.
Yeah, because it's already been approved on the
Right.
city council side, and it's ready to go. So it's
You're
just a
right.
matter of getting someone to go.
Yeah,
Because we don't need,
Yeah.
we don't need, I guess we need the rain for the, they are.
yeah, they are, so the $500,000 is on top of the city's 2.25 million for about a $2.75 million project. The city's money from certificates of obligation will redo entirely the Executive 9-hole course that's there today to include irrigation, regrading, new landscaping, to include grass, and then the 500,000 was for nighttime lighting.
Lights, right.
We'll be one of the only nighttime lit golf courses in South Texas, so, yeah, we're looking forward to it. But they did caution us that if we don't get the grass planted by a point in time in the spring, it would be too late, and unfortunately, that has happened to them because
Mr.
of
Vols,
supply chain
question?
issues and others.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I'm off topic here, but I would like, Peter, if you could have somebody, if you think it's prudent or you can do it, to look at both of the clubhouses at Gabe Lozano and Oso.
Right.
And if there's a way for somebody to put a plan together to replace those clubhouses, even if it's funding through us, I think I would like to see something like that. Those clubhouses are atrocious. And, you know, it's quite, I don't know if you play golf out there or not, but I've been out there many times and they're ugly.
Right,
And-
yeah, they're dated, they do a pretty decent job, the partner does, to maintain them.
Say that again?
They are dated, the operating manager does a pretty decent job
Right.
keeping them clean and as best they can. We have put together a plan already, and including a project in our bond 2022.
Okay.
For the Oso Bay building first, since the Lozano is getting that big investment of $2.75 million for the greens, or for the 9-hole, I should say. So, but that is the second one, we need to do that one as well. So we could look at this type B for some seed money, maybe for design at a
Right.
minimum, and get it
Okay.
ready for the next
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Let's just put that on the
Yeah.
agenda for next
Yeah.
month. We can formally
Okay,
discuss it.
we can
Thank
do
you.
that. So we can look at design using type B monies.
Thank you.
For the,
Continue, Heather,
Lozano.
please.
Sure. Any other questions on the economic development?
Mr. President, the way I see it is, this is just a financial report. It's not up for discussion. If you have any discussions as to improve anything according to how it's written, the financial report, we should bring it under new business. So
Thank you, Mr. Temez.
Okay, sure. Next slide. And then one more slide. And then sales tax revenue, so we have sales tax reported through February. Year to date, we are $158,000 above our revenue budget, which is a good above budget. And so we have collected $158,000 more than what we anticipated to date. And we do, you know, all indications can indicate that our sales tax revenues will continue to be strong through the rest of the year, barring any unforeseen instances. So that concludes my presentation, and if you have any other questions, I'm available to answer those.
No, any questions? I think we asked them all. Thank you, Heather.
Okay, thanks.
There being no further business, meeting adjourned at 1:45.
Number 3, yes. Yeah, no, got an action item.
I see where I rate.
I don't see it.
Randy must have given a present.
You see it? Item number 3, no?
Is that on the other side? After,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We're past our 1:45 time limit, though, so I'm sorry.
I'll speak very, very fast.
Continue.
I'm Jennifer Buxton. I'm with Neighborhood Services. Today before you is Greenwood Manor LP's Alma at Greenwood Affordable Rental Housing Project. Next slide, please. The Alma at Greenwood project, the owner will be the Greenwood Manor Limited Partner. The developer is a group called Adelante Development LLC. We do have a representative from the developer here. And the project, of course, we're talking about is Alma at Greenwood. The proposed development includes 152 rental units, all for households at or below 60% of the area median income. For a family of 4, that's $41,580. There's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The total project costs are estimated to be $30.8 million. Funding sources for this project include multifamily revenue bonds, 4% low-income housing tax credits, city and city-related funds. We're here to discuss Type A and Type B funds. We're also looking at Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation funding and City Home Investment Partnerships Program funds. There are deferred developer fees as a source, and the contractor's making a contribution. Next slide, please. You can see here the map. The pin is at Galahar and Greenwood. The orange represents the 10.55 acres. It's part of a larger 26-acre piece of ground. Next slide, please. Here's the site plan for the project. There's a total of 11 residential buildings. There's also a clubhouse and a small structure at the pool. Next slide, please. A sample of the elevations. This is one of the building types. Next slide, please. The financing. For the $30.8 million, there's the 15.985 in private activity bonds and the HUD-insured mortgage. They're going for 4% low-income housing tax credits of $9.6 million. There's almost $2 million in deferred developer fees. That contractor is contributing $225,000. We're requesting $481,483 from the Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation, $160,560 from Type A. Here for Type B, we're asking for $1,191,871. Both Type A and Type B would be granted to the Housing Finance Corporation, who would then loan it to the project. And then there's also a city home fund loan of almost $1.2 million. Next slide, please. So how does the city and city-related financing work towards the project? There'll be loans to Greenwood Manor. The city home funds of the 1.167, there's $300,000 of home funds that was previously allocated to a CDC of Brownsville project. We're reprogramming that. We have $751,000 in program income. Those are funds that we have collected from other rental loans and homeowner loans. And then we're recommending $114,713 from our future allocation, the HUD allocation that is coming this year. Those loans will be paid from net cash flow, deferred 3%, and amortized over 40 years. The Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation loan would be the 1.833. Of that, the 483 is from Housing Finance Corporation's cash. There's also the Type A, Type B funds that would be the $1,352,431. Those funds would be combined, and there would be that second loan made from cash flow, paid back from cash flow. It's deferred 3% and amortized over 40 years. The Housing Finance Corporation loan would subordinate to the city home fund loans. Both loans would be repaid when the limited partners exit the deal in 2039. They could also be entered back into the deal as part of a refinance. Next slide, please.
Real quick, Jennifer, which specific loans are going to be repaid in 40 years? The $1,352,431 from Type A B board, or the $1,008,000 from the financing corporation?
The Type A, Type B board will be combined with the Housing Finance Corporation into one loan. The project will repay that loan to the Housing Finance Corporation as one payment. In addition, there will be a mortgage payment for the city home funds, but the Housing Finance Corporation loan will subordinate to the city home fund loan.
Over a 30-year period?
It's actually a 40-year period.
40-year period.
It's amortized over a 40-year period. When the project is refinanced at about year 16, those funds can come back at that time.
Thank you. Question, Ms. Pagan?
Is the home a federal program? Is that why
Can you turn your mic on, please? Thank you.
Is the home a federal program? Is that why you have to subordinate to them?
The home program is a federal loan, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. So they require to be first lien?
They do not.
Oh, y'all just decided to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's
Dígame, as they say.
because we put a preference on making the entitlement and the home program whole, as opposed to bringing back the Type A and Type B secondary to the Housing Finance Corporation. The home program we use as a primary source for funding a lot of programs. It also does not lose its federal requirements, so it's going back into the same type of affordable housing that it does now. Our minor repair program gets funded out of there. Our down payment assistance program gets funded out of there, not just the rental. So when that program income comes back, it goes for other city programs as well, not just rental housing.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, not now, but particularly in A, when we talk about it. So what you're saying is this money is going to be loaned by A and B, but it will be repaid to the Housing Finance Corporation, and A and B will not get any return.
So it's going to be granted to the Housing Finance Corporation.
Right, I agree. I understand.
Okay.
So
So-
there will be no repayment
Correct.
of cash flow back to either A or B as
Correct.
a result of this.
Question, Mr. Harris?
My question was asked by Ms. Olivari, so I have no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
The amortization is deferred.
Yes.
How long?
They start paying back on the second mortgages in about year 11 or 12. At that point, the repayments start.
Okay.
Might be 13.
And just one other question. What kind of an investigation do we do about the accuracy of the cost estimate? This is $197,000 per unit. It just seems a little high. Granted, costs are going up.
Costs go up as do interest rates right now. So the cost estimate has to meet the costs have to meet certain requirements by TDHC to get the tax credits. In addition to that, at the end of when a tax credit project is placed in service, there is an audit done of a cost certification that is done, because the tax credits the amount of tax credits you can get are based on your costs. If that cost certification does not come back in line with what they said, then they don't get the tax credits that they were awarded. So if in fact the tax credit, or if in fact the costs are less, then the funds that go into it can be less as well.
Okay.
But there's a reasonable confidence in the cost estimate going forward, just based on underwriting standards and knowing that cost certification is done on the back end.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Jennifer, the 4% and the 9% tax credit programs are competitive. Have they already been awarded the 4%?
The 4% are not competitive.
Okay, yeah, the 9% is.
The 9% is the 4% tax credits. Their tax credit application went in the first week of this month.
Okay.
The award will be made at the July board meeting. That's part of the reason why our timing is so tight.
Okay.
This is our last shot at the 4% before the bond reservation is lost in August.
Okay, good, thank you. Appreciate it.
Very quickly, following up, if I understand it, the $197,000 per unit is all-in cost. In other words, it includes the clubhouse, the development of the site, and
Yes.
all of that. It's not the cost per unit, really.
That is correct.
Right, okay.
All told,
I don't know if that makes any difference, but, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
all of that, yep. The per unit subsidy of the city and city-related funds, that's the city home funds, Type A, Type B, and the Housing Finance Corporation is still $19-some thousand. It's
Per unit, yeah.
per unit.
Yeah.
So it's still below $20,000 per unit, the subsidy that we'd be putting in.
Thank you. We were provided this architectural site plan, and it says there's 100.
You turn your mic on, please, Ms. Summers.
Thank you, sorry about that. We were provided this architectural site plan, and it shows 150,000 square feet of the living structures, plus an additional 5,000 square feet for the community areas. That when it comes out across the cost of the project comes out to $198 a square foot. Do we know what's driving that so high?
I'll let the developer speak to that if that's all right.
Okay, yeah, I think more information so that we can understand the cost behind this. I mean, it's really hard to discern anything from this packet around the cost of the project.
And, yes, okay. Yeah. Jose.
Should we be talking about the 160,000 from the type A transfer loan to the type?
Next.
For this right here, when we haven't voted to approve that transfer?
We are presenting all of the information in terms of subsidies as one package. We didn't want to piecemeal it. So you're getting type A, type B, city home funds all at one shot. The entire $3 million package.
Yes, ma'am, but we're supposed to make a motion to make that transfer, and we haven't made that motion yet. So
This is just for the type B funds, and then we'll go to the type A and do that. But again,
Exactly.
I didn't want to piecemeal
You're
it.
talking already about accepting that 160,000. We haven't made a motion to do that, okay?
Yes, sir.
Before you start, I'm sorry, the one thing, this is a great project. I mean, I do like the project, but we have been requesting a workshop with affordable housing for quite some time, months, since last year. Yet, we finally get something from affordable housing to our board, and it's in the form of a motion to approve. So I know this just didn't start last month. I mean, obviously, you've been working on this for quite some time. So why hasn't this been presented to our board previously in either in the form of a workshop or at a earlier meeting? I don't like the fact that it gets presented for a motion to approve, and we've never even had one opportunity to review this. This is a big project, and it's in an area that we need development. So I'm for all that, but I'm not for bringing in a project without us doing any due diligence at all.
I will say up until, I'm going to say 4 weeks ago, the full gap hadn't been identified. The construction costs hadn't been finalized. The plans, which are now at 80%, had not been finalized.
I understand all that, and that's good, but the idea was there. I mean, you obviously have been working on this project for quite some time. So at some point in time, knock on our door and say, hey, we need to talk. Let's do a workshop so we can discuss this. We're going to bring it to your board in 3 months or 4 months or however long it's going to be. But the availability, bless you, to discuss this prior to approval is important.
You can always, we can always ask for a special meeting to discuss it. Okay?
Do you want to discuss
We'll
costs?
let the developer talk.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Gonzalez. I'm with Adelante Development, the group moving forward this project. To answer your question, Ms. Summers, the sum total of the $30 million, as Ms. Buxton started to explain, includes a lot of other costs. The land is $1.6 million. We have to satisfy a lot of masters, if you want to call it that, when we go to put the debt together. HUD has reserves that they require, both for ongoing operating reserves and then their own set of contingency dollars. So there's a $1.1 million of those reserves that HUD requires us to add to that. TDHCA, when they underwrite the tax credits, the 4% tax credits, even though it's a non-competitive program, we still have to meet all of the threshold requirements that are in the particular qualified allocation plan that we're applying under. So they require that we put in a 5% of construction costs contingency, which in this case is $851,000. So you can see that our total cost, including the general contractor fees, are roughly $20,200,000. So we have a lot of other architectural costs, origination costs for the various lenders that are involved, both construction and permanent, the land costs, all those other costs that come into it. So I can certainly get Ms. Buxton, if you're looking at it on a per unit basis, we can give you a breakdown that clarifies that, so where you can see what is contributing to the sum total of the unit cost from all these other different categories.
I appreciate all of that information. That's not information that we were provided in this packet, and I think it's beneficial information for us to have when we're looking at this project. I agree with all the other commissioners up here that we need affordable housing, and this is a great area for this type of project.
Right.
I just think I agree that getting the packet Friday afternoon before a Monday meeting on a holiday weekend without that information is a little hard to make a decision on it that quickly. But no, I appreciate all that information. I wish we had that prior to this meeting that we could have gone through.
And one other thing, the apartments are being sited so that the ingress egress to the apartments are lined up with the intersection of West Point and Greenwood Road. And so currently there are 3 traffic light arms at that intersection. Well, we are being required to install the 4th traffic arm, which makes sense because we have to control how people come in and out of the apartment. So that's an additional about $250,000 sum total by the time we meet all the requirements of addressing that intersection right there.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So the proposal includes the Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation be the general partner of the Greenwood Manor Limited Partner. The general partner will earn 25% of the developer fee. That includes $356,000 during the development, and then from 24 to 34, about $497,000. The Housing Finance Corporation also acquires the land and leases it on a long term to the limited partner. The limited partner pays for the cost of the land. The land and the improvements will be exempt from property taxes. The limited partner covers all costs of operations, and the Housing Finance Corporation receives value for the termination of the lease upon sale of the project. Next slide, please. So the ownership structure, you can see the Greenwood Manor Limited Partner. Then you can find the general partner, which would own 0.01% of the project. That would be a single entity, the Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation. Alma at Greenwood would be the special limited partner. That group is comprised of the developer and other interested parties. And then with 99.98% ownership of the property is the investor limited partnership, and that is the tax credit equity investor. Next slide, please. So the timeline for the project, we did a city council briefing last Tuesday. We're here at Type A and Type B. There'll be a Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation board tomorrow, in addition to the city council first reading on some of their items. The 4% low-income housing tax credit award, we'll know that in July of 2022. We'll take the $114,000 from the future allocation to council in August of 22. We'll be required to close on the bonds before August 23rd, 2022, or the bond reservation will expire. Construction is scheduled to start that month with project completion in December of the following year. That's the end of the PowerPoint slides.
Question, Mr. Valls?
Thank you, Mr. President. Jennifer, can you go back one slide, please? The 0.01% general partner, which is the Housing Finance Corp., so that degree of percentage allows them exemption of ad valorem tax on the entire project?
Because they will be owning the land and leasing it to the project, yes.
Okay. What would be the estimated value of that property if it was not tax exempt?
The land is being purchased for 1.6. Because it's a low-income housing tax credit project, the value is going to be based on the net operating income, which is somewhere in the $960,000 range. We estimated that the first year property tax would be around $240 or $250.
Okay. Well, they're not getting anything now, because what, is it ag exempt?
It's ag exempt now.
Okay.
There's nothing being, I think there's $100 being collected on it now.
Okay.
The ongoing property tax exemption, the ongoing operating is about $1,600 per unit per year.
Okay, okay. Well, they're not getting property tax now, so
No.
they're not necessarily going to miss out on it. And affordable housing is desperately needed, especially in that area. What I like about that area is there's immediate access to healthcare right across the street. Christus has a clinic there, and immediate access to public transportation. There's a couple of bus stops down Greenwood and Galahar. So, yeah, that's a benefit to the folks that are going to live there.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Appreciate that.
You have a question, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, just one, I support the project. The bond expiration date of August 23rd, are there any interest rate guarantees in the current?
I'm going to let the developer speak to that.
Okay.
The short answer is no.
Okay.
But it's something that we obviously monitor by using a HUD-insured mortgage. The HUD insurance treats, credit enhances the bonds, and it becomes a AAA-rated bond. So we've been looking at the movement of the 10-year Treasury and the impact that that has on the interest rate, and so that our HUD lender basically uses a base rate that takes into effect assumptions as to where the 10-year Treasury might move. So we're not currently underwriting, and our loan is already into HUD, and it's in the process of underwriting, so that you try to make some allowances for the fact that it's fluid.
So would it be safe to say, in a rising rate environment, the sooner to close, the better?
Right. The thing about the good news, bad news about tax-exempt bonds is that the only way that you can access the 4% tax credit is through the use of tax-exempt bonds. Unlike the 9%, which you apply to that credit in an open competitive market, the 4% is totally tied to the use of tax-exempt financing. The downside, if you want to call it that, is that the state legislature puts a 180 hard close date on any bond reservation that the Texas Bond Review Board issues. So our August close date is hard. There's no waivers, there's no extensions. If we don't close on that date, we start all over again. We go. And right now it's a highly, highly competitive environment to access taxes and bond reservations because of the ability to raise equity and to deal with it. You're welcome.
Question, Ms. Summers?
You turn your mic on, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We had another project come before us that came back because of zoning issues. This project also is adjacent to some single-family homes. Is this zoned for multifamily already, or will it have to go through the rezoning?
It is currently zoned RS6, and it has to come back for zoning to be an RM. I can't remember the RM designation, but yes, it does require rezoning, and they have started those conversations. As of yet, there is no roadblock to receiving that designation.
Okay, because I know that was a big one in the past that killed a previous deal.
I'm sorry. We go before zoning on May 9th.
Okay.
And so the process, the site has to be replatted because, as has been stated earlier, it's just a single tract right now, and so we're asking for the multifamily zoning and the replat. All of that is being worked through right now with civil, and to date there's been no adverse reaction to that activity.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, so this has already been through the planning commission? It's already been approved or no?
No, May 9th.
Okay. Ms. Olivari?
No, I'm sorry, I'll ask. Oh, I know what it is. I just wanted to double check together.
Microphone, please, sorry.
Yes, sorry. This will utilize about 60% of all the fund balance, current fund balance that we have in Type B.
Yes.
In housing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Mr. Vols?
No, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Jennifer, are you done?
Unless you have further
Stop
questions.
now. Stop now, Jennifer. Thank you for all your hard work on this. It's a very creative financing, and I know that's not easy to do. So thank you for all your hard work on that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any questions? Ms. Oliver, do you have a question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Summers?
Just as a request for future projects that we have some type of workshop for,
This much.
yeah, this much money and more than a weekend's notice to evaluate the project. I agree with everyone. It's a good project. We need the housing, but I feel like we're just getting kind of to the point where we're being presented with projects in a crunch time and asking to just push them on through without any careful deliberation.
Thank you, Ms. Summers. We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
On our American Bank Center. We know that this board has contributed financial dollars to improve the American Bank Center and the arena. And we are making some changes there. We'll be ready to talk to you in our next meeting, which will be in the May timeframe. So we'll have an agenda item as well, then to tell you about the good news that's happening at the arena.
Okay. So we're April the 18th, which is tax deadline, by the way, guys. Make sure you file
What are you
your
doing here?
extension or your return today. So I know Bug Days is around the corner. Is that area by the suites is it ready to go?
No, sir. On the second floor?
Yeah.
You're talking what used to be the outdoor terrace?
Yes, sir.
I was just up there about 2 weeks ago, and it's been demoed out and kind of secured, but it's probably, it looked like maybe 20% complete. So, yeah, there's that one, and then there's another suite they're doing at the corner. There was a second kind of a bar up there. ASM Global's in charge of those, but we're also looking at that to see, does that make sense to have them improve the city facility? Maybe our engineering department should be more involved in the construction. So we can bring you an update on those two projects as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Zanoni. That being said, we'll call the meeting closed at 2:15 p.m. To order, 2:16. Ms. Huerta, please call the roll.
President Lee Trujillo,
Present.
Member Scott Harris,
Present.
Leo Oliveri.
Leah.
Okay, thank you. Diana Summers.
Present.
Robert Temes. John Valls.
Here.
Alan Wilson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make public comment? Ms. Huerta, have you received any public comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. All right. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Have you had an opportunity to review the minutes?
I move that we approve.
Harris and Valls, first and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Financial report.
Good afternoon. Chairman and Board, Heather Hurlbert, Director of Finance. Next slide. Awesome. So we'll start out. This report is for the 5 months ended February 28th, 2022. In the Seawall Fund, we began the fiscal year with a fund balance of $30.4 million, revenues to date of $3.4 million, expenditures to date of $18.5 million, and the majority of those expenditures is the transfer for the projects approved in the CIP over to the CIP fund. That does leave an ending fund balance as of February 28th of $15.3 million. Next slide, please. So this is a listing of the current active projects within the CIP fund. So we do have a total of $50 million in projects that are ongoing. To date of that $50 million, 7.5, almost $7.6 million has been expended to date. This does not include anything that is encumbered. A lot of these do have encumbered contracts, but we do have actual expenses of $7.6 million. Next slide, please. Moving on to the Arena Fund, we began the fiscal year with $14.2 million in fund balance. Our revenues to date are $3.4, almost $3.5 million. Expenditures to date is $1.8 million, and our ending fund balance is about $15.9 million. And within the Arena Fund, the primary expenditures that have been expended are the amounts that we transfer to the Visitors Facility Fund for the arena expenses. We will have debt service payments coming up. Trying to remember exactly, we haven't paid those yet for the year, but so it's primarily the administrative expenses and those transfers. Next slide, please. Then looking at our Economic Development Fund, and just a reminder that the Economic Development Fund is not receiving any new revenues. We moved that function over to our Type B. So the only revenue to date is just interest that's coming off of the expenses, coming off of the investments we have. So we began the fund balance the year with a $3.8, almost $3.9 million fund balance. We have expenditures year to date of $367,000. Which leaves us a ending fund balance of $3.5 million. Of that 3.5, we have almost $3.3 million that has been committed to expenditures or projects. So that does leave us an available fund balance of $218,000. And of that, $160,000 is allocated towards affordable housing and $58,000 is available for economic development. Next slide, please. So on affordable housing, we do have the $500,000 dedicated to the fish pond development, and we did extend that development the agreement last month, and they do expect to have that completed over the summer and have the residents in the June, July, August timeframe. Next slide, please. Then we have our economic development business incentives. We do expect that we will pay out almost $2 million of those in fiscal year 22, with a remaining $825,000 in fiscal year 23. And this does reflect the updated incentive provided to Whataburger Field for the improvements to the Whataburger Field complex. Next slide, please. And then looking at our sales tax revenue, we do have reporting through February of 2022. And to date, we are $316,000 over what we had budgeted for revenue. And like I said, on the Type B, we do not foresee that number we anticipate that we'll continue to collect over and above what we had budgeted. So that does conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions. Okay.
Item G3, We have a motion authorizing an agreement with the City of Corpus Christi to provide $160,560 from the Corpus Christi Business and Job Development Corporation Affordable Housing Fund to provide the Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation funds for the Alma at Greenwood, 152-unit construction affordable rental housing project for households at or below 60% of the area median income located on 10 acres at Greenwood and Galahar, approximately $160,560 from the unreserved fund for affordable housing and amending the budget. We've discussed this
So
in
moved.
full. Motion by Robert, second by Vols. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Now you
carries.
have the 160,000.
Good job, Jennifer.
Knocked it out the first time.
It's the kind of report I like, a Randy report.
That's a Randy report.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, board members. Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services, and I'm here with my quarterly engineering services project update. So I'm just going to run through the PowerPoint presentation. This project is nearing completion, the McGee Beach Breakwater Improvement Project. It's going to make that concrete core wall a couple of feet wider, 1 foot higher. Should give us some better wave attenuation, and folks that like to go out there and fish might find it a little bit more usable for that purpose as well. The Salt Flats Levy Improvements Project, that is technically under construction. We've awarded that contract, but we've had to suspend time. We're having a few issues coordinating with Union Pacific Railroad. We're anticipating those should be cleared up, and you should see actual construction activity going on out there in the next month or so. Art Museum, you might recall Type A funded a year or so ago a facility assessment, and then based on the deficiencies that were identified, we put out a package to design repairs to address those deficiencies. That project was just awarded for bid at last council meeting for $843,000 to STBP Inc. And that project should be actually starting construction next month. And the Art Center, that was another one we did a Type A funded a facility assessment on that. That design is complete, and that project is going to be advertised for bid a little bit later this month. The water gardens, we put that back out as a design build procurement. There were 2 submittals received, and they evaluated Fulton Construction as being the most qualified bidder, and we are in the process of negotiating a contract with Fulton. We're planning to have that at the first meeting in May, assuming those negotiations pan out. And based on where we're discussing now, it's probably going to be a 2-step process where we'll take a small contract to allow them to further the design to a point that they can give us a guaranteed maximum price.
Question on the water garden. I know there's been discussion, Peter, maybe you can shed some light on that and possibly other uses for that land, so to speak.
Right. So, City Council, we've been working with you all in City Council to refurbish the water gardens, and we did put a request for proposals out under a design build contract, and we did receive 2 respondents through a technical review and interviews. We selected a respondent, and right now we just recently got their pricing for the renovations of that. And if we took it to council for award, it would be for initial work, since it's pretty complex and with supply chain issues and other issues in the market, we're not sure, the contractor's not sure of the ultimate price. So we would take it as a phase 1 where they would begin the work and then come back with a guaranteed maximum price. And so we're pretty excited about that. If people have an emotional attachment to the water gardens, we finally are close to getting it refurbished. At the same time, we know we're looking at a convention center hotel, and the convention center area And we do have a contract that was awarded with an outside firm, Hunden, to look at a convention center hotel, what that would mean for the area and how would we finance that, or how would the city be involved, if at all. And that site has been named as a potential location. But what we're doing is the contract's ready to go to council. We're going to check with council this week to see, do they want to move forward with refurbishing the water gardens? It's kind of an emotional question, or a community value question. Because even if that was a great site for a hotel, if people want to bring that water garden back, that question is, it's either a yes or a no. Do we want the water garden? And so we're going to test that question this week. And if we have the majority of council that says, let's refurbish that water garden, because there's other sites for a hotel that are just as good, then we'll place it on the agenda. So we want to make sure there's consensus amongst the council members on that first question. And we'll see what happens with those questions.
So we won't award a contract for the water garden until we hear first?
No, we could, because what we want to ask council is, because to me, I wasn't born and raised here, but I've been in Texas and San Antonio for 20 some odd years. To me, it seems as a sentimental value of the water garden amongst our residents in the community. And so it's a community cultural asset, regardless if that could be the best place for a hotel. The question is, do we want this water garden in our community as it is, where it's located? To relocate it would be financially unfeasible. So we want to see that. Do people want the water garden to come back? We've done several years of work on it now to where it's an affordable renovation or refurbishment. The price has been cut in half by some design changes. So it's really that question: do we as a community want to see our water gardens running again? If the answer is yes, then we'll proceed with that contract. It's ready to go. If it's no, if it's no, we don't like it, or no, let's wait to see, that could be a good site, then we delay bringing that contract to council.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Olivari?
Yeah, I just mentioned one thing, that one room that looks towards the port. You put a building up there and you block the total view out of that room. I mean, you're looking at a wall.
Right.
I think. So
Yeah.
it's just something for them to maybe
That's a
think
good point.
about when because I've used that room for events. And
Right.
part of it is we're looking out towards, the port buildings and everything, and I'm afraid you'd just be looking at
Yeah, I think you're
somebody's
right.
bedroom window.
Right.
Mr. Temez, you had a question?
Peter, the people have waited 5-6 years without a water garden. Can they wait one more year?
We don't think so, but again, it's going to be up to the city council, right? You're right, it has been damaged since Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah,
Another fountain that was, as well as the one by the American Bank Center, the waiting, the kind of the splash pad. That one, because the damage was less extensive, we were able to get that going. It's back up and running. It was one of the first things I did upon being here as city manager. But this water garden's a little more complex. It has a little bit more refurbishment requirement. But we've been at it for 3 years. So I personally believe that the convention center hotel shouldn't be a stopping point for it, because there's plenty of land around the convention center. But to me, it's more of an emotional, cultural asset question. Because even if it was the best location, if we want the water garden as part of our culture, then let's get it refurbished.
Jeff, I might be mistaken, but when we approved this project, it was 2.9 million, and now I see it's 4 point what now?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, this was one of those
One time we saw
situations.
like 9 million.
That we had it designed at basically that scale, and the city manager sent us back to the drawing board. Now, that was designed the way you would design kind of a public utility sort of facility, where we had complete redundancy and had a new site built above ground building that was going to house all the electrical mechanical equipment. Now, we would have had excellent up factor, I would say 99.9% with all the redundancy, but we went back to the drawing board and downscoped the design. Now, we didn't have the money to completely redesign it, and that's why we put it out design build, is we did kind of a 30% design and thought we could get it down to this level. So I know that sounds like a lot of money, but to put it in perspective, the Cole Park Pier cost us $10 million. You know, a arterial street reconstruction project about a mile long costs us about that much money.
I'm just glad you've been here from the beginning, Jeff, and you know all the history of this water garden.
I wish I could file it away, you know, in the kind of distant memories, you know, instead of still being in front of me. But one day soon.
Yes, sir. Leah Olivari?
Question, Jeff. We were still looking at a complete assessment, I'll ask this before one of the board members does, of the breakwater. Is that underway? That
is under RFQ. Actually, I'll need to put a slide in here
Thank you.
for that one. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're going to be bringing that back to us with recommendations after they do their work?
It might not, so what the process would be, it's funded just for the study phase
Right.
of it. So we'd certainly share that with you when we get it, but it wouldn't require type A action because it's already funded in the CIP.
Right. I'm just still curious about that assessment.
This next project is the Marina Dox Replacement, and that's a $20 million project. The construction drawings are done. Right now, we're still working through getting the Army Corps of Engineers permit for the dredging. And once we get that cleared, that one will be advertised for bid.
So it will have a gasoline station or not? Still working on it?
Yeah, I haven't had a recent update from our marina manager, Jonathan Atwood, but it's a tough market to be in, board member, so we're still, I think the preferred choice was having a third-party operator come in and operate on our facility at a nominal rate from us, so that we could get that convenience there. But I think I haven't had an update from him in a little bit, so we'll try to get you one for the next time.
I still have some friends of mine that do carry that 5-gallon can to the boats, so that's a safety hazard, the way I see it. So.
Right. Yeah, we know it's an important part of the business there, and we trust Jonathan Atwood, and we know we'll have a good solution.
Okay, and this next slide, I need to break this up. Next time, it'll be 3 separate slides, but these are all projects that were approved in the last CIP, the boat haul out, the new Cooper's Alley boaters facility, and the boardwalk. These were all advertised in the recent RFQ. So the boardwalk, Jacobs has been selected for that, and we're in scoping and negotiation right now. And the boat haul out and the boaters facilities, there's going to be interviews conducted, and we haven't made the final selections on those designers yet. So those projects are kind of in the early phase, just getting out of the starting blocks. And this last project is the flood wall upgrades at the Science Museum. And I know some of you that have been on here for quite a while, this project's been a little bit like a pendulum. It's gone back and forth. Mr. Tamez, you probably remember the 2009 version where we were improving the whole waterfront. That was the way it was described in the HDR report. The way that we've currently got it described and funded in the FY22 CIP is at $3.65 million total, and we were going back to just addressing the structural deficiencies with the flood wall behind the Science Museum. We're currently in kind of, I'd say, scoping and negotiation. We've got to finally decide on what the final scope on this project is going to be to negotiate an engineering contract. And currently, there's some project overlap or adjacency with projects that are planned by the Board of Corpus Christi. And that's why we've invited them to come and share some of their plans with the board. That's the end of my slides, and I stand ready for any questions.
Any questions, Jeff? So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Chairman, could I interrupt for a moment? if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind? So we, just on that last project that Mr. Edmonds talked about, we do have Jeff Pollock from the port that's here with us this afternoon. And just to repeat the timeline or kind of the events that took place. So about 3 years ago, we had a much bigger project. But as we developed the budget last year, we realized that we don't own any of that property. So I asked, why are we spending our money on other people's property? So we scaled it back, as Jeff said, to a structural bulkheading and a protection of what we do need to do is protect flooding of downtown, and that dropped the price down to $3 million. Since that time, and through another agreement with the port, we're letting them use some of our territory that's right next to the Science Museum parking lot. And they've come up with a really nice design of what could be, or what would be known as Harbor Point East Park Site. So given that and the tremendous investment, and if you want, Jeff Pollock could speak to it a little bit.
Yes, please.
We thought it'd be worthwhile to reevaluate once again the scope of work, because our monies could complement the park that they're contemplating doing, and we could go beyond just the bulkheading. We could also partner with the port to have them take care of all the work, and it would be a reimbursement. We would reimburse them instead of having the city also have a contractor working in the same site. So there could be some efficiencies and mobilization and other costs that would help the ratepayer, taxpayer. So we thought it'd be good to have to hear from the port today from Mr. Pollock and kind of just give you a kind of a summary of what they're looking at. You may have seen some of this in the media, but Jeff knows it best than anybody. So we'll turn it over to Jeff, if that's okay.
Jeff, thank you for attending today. I apologize. I should have bumped you up to the front of the agenda, and I didn't do that. But looking forward to your presentation, and this is exciting times for the city of Corpus Christi.
Thanks, and I'd like to thank staff and the board for having me, and just acknowledge a few of my colleagues who were here. Our CEO, Sean Strawbridge, was here for an hour, just had to bolt to get to the south side, and we have Rosario Bailey, who's Director of Community Relations as well. But again, thanks so much, and for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, some of you up here I've worked with for over a decade. I've been involved in growth and planning issues since arriving in Corpus in 2006. This site and the redevelopment of this site was actually, it frankly is a bucket list item for me. It was on my radar long before the port was. I came over to the port in 2018 to start up a planning practice there. So it's really just an absolute pleasure to be able to share these concepts with you and talk to you about, I think, what could be a world-class destination on our waterfront. I'll also preface all of my subsequent slides by saying that I'm here only with an update. There is no request baked into this. So hopefully that's a little bit disarming, and we can just sort of celebrate an opportunity together. Can you tell I've learned that the hard way through our commission? But so let me just sort of introduce you what you have in the slides before you, and I know you all have a paper copy as well, so it's going to be tough to see in the detail on the small screens. But to orient you, at the top of the slide here, number 1 is our new executive administration buildings, the Newport building. If any of you have not seen it, please give me a call. We'd love to show you around. We're tremendously proud of it. It's an amazing space. You feel connected to the ship channel all day, every day. It's really an amazing experience. The area between the red lines is the right-of-way for the current bridge. That is also the footprint in which the bridge will have to be demolished. Contractually, Flatiron Dragados is contractually obligated to pull that bridge down in its existing right-of-way. And then you can see on the bottom of the screen the high-level rendering of the space that we are hoping to redevelop by way of the plans I'll show you today. We ultimately intend to redevelop the port-owned property underneath the bridge. If and when that comes to fruition, we could refer to it as the second phase here, Harbor Point West. We sort of put that on ice because of both the time frame for the bridge and because there are just myriad of opportunities for what that site could be. But focused here on the part to the east of the bridge right-of-way, which we know can be redeveloped without any impacts from demolition, or meaningful impacts, I should say. So let me, if I may, I'll just zoom in here in subsequent slides and walk you through the different elements. So approaching the site from Chaparral, the first element here to the left, if you can see my cursor moving, is a gateway feature. The idea here is to do something architectural that really announces your arrival at the site. This is, I should mention, the Richter Architects team is leading this design, and their concept here is a really large structure in mass, made of concrete, emblematic of the prow of a ship. And if you look at it from other views, you can see it actually, that concrete comes to kind of a razor thin edge. So it's actually structurally really neat. Looking at it from the back, it's got curved surface. The idea is to perhaps have a mirrored surface on one side and something with some texture on the other. We're also talking about some art opportunities on the back side. So again, that's the gateway feature through which you would enter the site. And once you do that, you find yourself on what we've come to call the Art Walk Promenade. So this is a multi-use path that truncates at the waterfront. So once you walk through that gate feature, you immediately have a view of the bay, the ship channel to the left, the aquarium across the mouth of the ship channel. And we have a public art consultant who's part of the design team working on what would be a combination of rotating exhibits and permanent art featured in these promontories, these little kind of rooms within the pathway, and then sprinkled throughout the site. And so this is a really exciting opportunity to bring what we hope will be oversized, whimsical art, and really create what we think will be a truly unique experience walking down that promenade. And we have a relationship with the Art Museum of South Texas for co-curation of some of these spaces as well. Off to the left, we have what we've been referring to as the Discovery Path, so sort of a secondary path of travel that meanders through native vegetation. We'd have some interpretive signage, ideally cultivated with the Science Museum and highlighting local ecology, and particularly watershed ecology, using some of that vegetation for stormwater filtration. So let me flip through a couple other images of those elements. So you can see that the experience of entering that Art Walk Promenade, you can see the bay in the background. Of course, this doesn't show the installed artwork, but I can show you a few other versions of what it might look like with art. Looking backwards from the end of that promenade.
One second, Jeff, we got a quick question from Mr. Vols.
Hey, Jeff, can you go back just a little bit to the main slide?
Yes, sir. How
right
far?
There. Yeah, right there. So
Okay.
the promenade, is that currently Harbor Drive?
So yeah, thank you for asking. I should back up even a little further. It is where Harbor Drive used to be. And again, forgive me. In my enthusiasm for this project, I probably should get in a little more context. We've been coordinating with the city on this site, we the port, frankly, since a few months after my arrival in 2018. And if you recall, there used to be a roundabout on Harbor Drive here, and a sort of odd stranded segment of Harbor Drive, and the museum was using it as ingress for its parking, and there was some surplus parking. In order to create the space for this redevelopment, we knew that we had to consolidate that museum parking. So by way of an MOU, and I've got some slides on it at the end, between the city and the port, end of last January, I think it's dated the 29th, so beginning of 2021, the port was given access to redevelop some of this city-owned property. I'll show you where the dividing line was on the port dime, as long as the property stayed within a public use. And so what we did at that time is our commission authorized what ended up being about $630,000 to redevelop the museum parking lot. So if you've been there recently, it's shiny and new. And essentially what we did was decommission Harbor Drive. We had to reconstruct the parking lot in order to preserve the parking supply for the museum. Right. So the new museum the new parking lot in front of the Science Museum actually has a few more spaces than they did even when Harbor Drive was in service. So we did that in order to create this blank slate for redevelopment. So to answer your question, this Art Walk Promenade actually is exactly where Harbor Drive once was, but if you go out there today, it's a grassy site. So we've essentially made a blank slate in anticipation of these subsequent phases.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, no
forgive me
worries.
for
Thank
not
you.
covering
Appreciate
that. So with respect to the art that we envision on the site, starting with what we hope to do around the gateway feature, we actually have proposals out right now to artists for either mosaic work. These are resin panels. We'd like to do something on the back of this, potentially on the back of this gateway feature, but certainly in the horizontal plane around it, something where you walk through that gateway and you're immediately overwhelmed with large-scale art, some sort of color that is truly unique and is a photo op in and of itself. And so that's one element of the public art consultant scope. They will also be curating artwork on the art walk. And so just to give you a sense of what they've done in similar situations in other contexts, we've really emphasized bright colors, light elements, this idea of oversized art features to really enhance that sense of whimsy and scale on that art walk promenade. And then lastly, there will be some permanent art installed throughout the site. Really like the idea of doing something that sort of pays homage to how windy the wind in Corpus, some of the things that would be powered naturally with some bright color. So just to give you a sense of what we're talking about when we talk about the art components. Also have here another view of that discovery path, again, really focusing on native vegetation, local ecology, interpretive signage. It's a fairly compact space, but I think we have the opportunity to do some really interesting things with the vegetation, particularly to provide some stormwater quality benefit. So shifting out to the north portion of the site, so on the ship channel. So to orient you, this is again looking back. You have on this right-hand exhibit, you can see the Art Walk Promenade curves back that way. The Science Museum parking lot is here. Our Newport building is in the background with what will be the new Harbor Bridge, and the entrance to the mouth of the inner harbor is this direction as well. So to walk you through these elements, we have a play structure with what looks like water but is not actually a water feature. I'll share some other slides about that in a moment. We have a lounge lawn with some topographic features and some shade and some shared seating. We have a shaded semicircle of bench swings, sort of an opportunity to pay, to indulge in that time-honored tradition of watching ships roll by on the water's edge. And then we have this promontory, which we've been referring to as the bowsprit overlook. So we really wanted, and there's actually a slight point in the shoreline here, and we wanted an element that would give you a chance to sort of stand out over the water. A photo taken from behind it, there's a slight incline here, will give the sense that you're really literally suspended over the water. It's as close as you can get to some of the largest vessels in the world passing by. I mean, this alone could be an absolute must-stop destination in South Texas. There's no other place like it on the Texas coast, arguably even on the entire Gulf Coast. So really trying to celebrate that connection to our working waterfront and the presence of the port. Secondarily, we have another overlook here. So this corner of property is actually, if you may have seen in Mr. Edmonds' slides, the city flood wall project, if and when it's constructed, would end here. This is a port-owned corner property for which we're eager to work with the city to make whatever enhancements need to be made for the flood wall. In the interim, we've envisioned it as what we've been calling coastal prairie restoration, just some native Barrier Island grasses with another overlook, another place to sort of enjoy the experience close to the waterfront. There's lots of flexibility in this, and I'll show you in some other slides, but this could be connected around the bayfront. This could also be reimagined if the flood wall were elevated into a pedestrian space. So I can show you what that might look like. Reverting back here to the play structure, at its essence, this site is about increasing access, the entire site, increasing access to the port, who we are, what we do. We're a 100-year-old institution that's sort of nebulous to most of the community. And so we're trying with every detail to have a nautical theme, have a maritime theme. I'm particularly proud of this because it was something that I sort of planted as a whimsical thing, and now it seems to be coming to fruition. But the idea of a play structure modeled after a tug with all sorts of accoutrements, dolphin, and buoy spinners. So this is still in design. We're getting some input from our tug companies in the port, but seems like a great way to captivate the imagination of our youth and plant the seed about maritime operations. So that's at the heart of the site. And again, I think some opportunity to do some interpretive work with the Science Museum. I have a couple additional slides that show elevation and stormwater if you're curious. And then I was hoping, unless there are questions about design, maybe I'll pause there just to tell you about where we are and what the relationship looks like with the city.
Question, Mr. Harris?
Thanks, Jeff. Hey, I'm really glad you're doing this. My My wife and I have, this is a special place for us. We would go and, not that way. It is a special place for us. We would take lunch down there all the time. We would drive down to the end, sit there, watch the ships roll in, and have lunch. And as you know, I work downtown. It's so convenient. And the way it looks now, I mean, we went down there just a couple months ago, and we're like, oh my God, something needs to happen here. There's no place to sit down and just take a break and have lunch. What I see here is great. I would throw in a picnic table or two, something you can kind of throw it into the artsy thing, but.
I got you. This is a shaded picnic area.
Okay.
And there are
And it's adjacent to parking?
There's
Okay.
parking right here.
Okay.
Yes.
So-
Sorry, it's so hard to highlight all the details in this
No
format,
worries, no worries. So,
and shared seating here and here and all the way around here, so.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, yeah, I'm glad something's being done down there. And east and west side needs to be done, so. Both sides.
Agreed.
So I know we can probably start the east side now, and west will come
That's right.
in the year 2030 something when the bridge is.
If it were up to me, west will be shovel-ready when the bridge comes down, but
Okay.
we're going to walk before we run, and hopefully there will be such great utilization and such positive response to the east side that we'll have no choice but to move forward with the west side.
Appreciate it.
Your question, Ms. Summers?
Well, I guess that kind of answers my question, was around the west development that's shown here. Is the idea that the park would expand into that area and be
Yeah.
more complementary of that?
That's right. And we actually, we do have some concepts for what could be in there. Sunken amphitheater, flexible performance space, some observation element. I think there's a question of whether we need some additional parking towards the front door of the port building. I mean, I think we have to revisit the basis for design a little bit, but no question, the idea is to keep that in the public realm. The port owns all of that property. TxDOT has use of it by way of an easement that will return to the port when the bridge is demolished. But absolutely, the idea is to create, edge to edge from the port building to the Science Museum, a place that is, truly unique to our community and of South Texas. I mean, for me, having brought people ranging in age from 6 to 86 to that point when ships come by, I mean, the response is universal, right? It's one of those places to me that it's as true to our community as any other single location. So we want to maximize that redevelopment for that purpose.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, it's a wonderful concept. I mean, badly needed down there. Can you go back to the slide that shows that point? Yeah, right there. When I was a kid, out there were telescopes, but they also had some Navy guns out there. I don't know if y'all remember that. Yeah, they had Navy guns out there. Yeah, well, I mean, they were inoperable, obviously,
Yeah.
but they had 2 or 3 of them out there. And when we would go to the museum as kids, and we would go run over there, and you could sit in them, and you could
I love that.
make them go. Yeah, they're really neat.
Okay.
Not that you're going to put that out there, but there's a lot of history out there with those telescopes because that was there, Jesus, 40 years ago, give or take. So that's pretty neat. One question, I didn't see anywhere in the design, is there going to be a transit stop for a bus?
So we from my time on the RTA board, right? I mean, obviously, access and particularly, public
'Cause the RTA
access
runs
and
a
public
trolley
mobility. I mean,
downtown.
it's near and dear. I think that the first step is create a destination, and the second is to accommodate that destination with rerouting. It's certainly easy to do with downtown service. It's not much of a departure from some of those existing routes. So plenty of space for it at the mouth by the gateway feature. So.
Okay, because the RTA runs a trolley out there, which is
Yeah.
a neat feature.
Yeah.
Especially for that area, but just something to consider.
So to that end, and I definitely, if you all will indulge me, I'd like to take a moment to make sure I update you on this sort of where we are. But in the broader context of what happens with the right-of-way between the port building and the old federal courthouse when the bridge is demolished, I mean, the prevailing concept, I think, includes a multimodal corridor that would have some pedestrian-oriented redevelopment, but could accommodate, because there's already train track, and so we've talked a lot about what it would look like to have a functioning transit connection or microtransit connection between what the county hopes to redevelop around the old courthouse and what the port aspires to do on this site. In my mind, that half-mile linkage could really be, the catalyst for all, tenfold in reinvestment. I mean, so it's actually already shown in some of our concepts. I just, again, try not to get too far ahead of ourselves here.
Well, as you know, and I know from my time on the RTA board, the RTA can leverage their money with federal dollars.
Yep.
So if they're a partner in the program, then there's more access to money there. So.
And I think if we ever would aspire to extend that, beyond Staples as more than just that microtransit linkage, I think we absolutely would need FTA dollars in it. So that's that's a decadal scale process.
Right.
But now's the time to start the conversation. So I really appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, definitely. Great job, man. It looks wonderful. I can't wait to see it.
Would you mind
Question, Ms. Olivari?
Are you sure? Okay. So just quickly, and I really appreciate the extra time. In terms of where we are today, our board in mid-February authorized the last increment of detailed design. So additional structural work, construction documentation, basically taking us through the bid and construction services process. So design is fully funded and underway. We're in that final stage of design. I mentioned that we've been coordinating with city staff for 3 years plus. We've ratcheted that coordination back up over the last couple months, and that ultimately has led me here to you today. We have also been coordinating with Flatiron about what their plans will be for demolition. They're still in a preliminary phase. Ultimately, it's likely that Flatiron will seek some additional construction easements, and we'll do our best to accommodate those. I think we are not eager to lose 3 years of use of this site. The idea of delaying development until that bridge is down, to me, is sort of like a dagger in the heart. So I think we're going to forge ahead with the understanding that there may be some areas of the softscape that take some impacts and need to be redeveloped. And we're going to, we know we'll have to limit use during demolition, but we'll cross that bridge, pun intended, when it comes to it. So that's where we are, in case anyone's wondering how this fits in with the bridge demo. And then I can show you, you can see here what the target would be for soliciting bids and going to construction. I mentioned at the onset, our access, and I'm just going to go ahead and flip straight to this exhibit. This is the exhibit in the MOU between the city and the port. And what you can see is, let me walk you through sort of overlaying symbology here, but the line in yellow demarcates city property from port property. So everything on this side is city-owned, and you can see it's really odd-shaped. It's old rights-of-way. And everything on this side is port-owned. And so, in essence, we asked the city for access to what is in here 1.7 acres to do redevelopment on the port's dime. Everything in red was redeveloped into the new parking lot. So those were improvements made by the port on the port dime, but for which the city is assuming maintenance responsibility. Everything outside of that parking lot footprint will be improved on the port dime and according to the MOU, would be maintained on the port's dime. So the improvements I've shown you today would be at the port's expense, if and when our commission chooses to fund the redevelopment. So I do want to make that distinction. This MOU is is sort of that enabling partnership. The last thing I'll mention, and it's on this slide, the MOU does reference a forthcoming interlocal if and when the city is making flood wall improvements that necessitate use of some of the port property. We essentially acknowledged in the MOU that when that happens, it's probably worth a separate agreement to define what that access looks like for those improvements, because those are a different class of improvements, and it would involve a different part of the property. So I've taken the liberty here of including some of the old renderings from back in 2018. Again, when we first started coordinating on the site. The question of scope and scale of the investment in the flood wall, I'm going to be very circumspect in my comments about what that is. I know it's been a long-standing topic of discussion here. I think the potential for synergy is obvious. The potential for that flood wall rehabilitation, if it reestablished or established a multi-use path and a walkable connection all the way to our downtown bayfront, I think the power of that probably doesn't need much in the way of comment from me. I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel with the Army Corps' presence. I can tell you with respect to the port-owned waterfront, on behalf of the organization, we are absolutely eager to work with the city on realizing whatever version of that vision you all see fit. Obviously, the more connectivity and the more pedestrian oriented, the more excited we get about it. But this is what, back in 2018, this is the rendering the planning department, the city produced. And if I lay on top where our site is, you can kind of see in our basis of design, we actually were planning for the possibility of connectivity to the city flood wall. Obviously, that connectivity can be reimagined, but my point in saying this is that we were very careful in our concept development and in our design not to do anything that precluded that possibility and creating that opportunity for synergy, if the city chooses to go in that direction. One more view that we had from the city back in 2018 was just what that usable space on top of the flood wall could be. So again, I'm being careful not to overstep here. I just want to make it clear that we were from the onset very mindful of the opportunity the city had before it. So that's the end of my deck, and happy to take any other questions.
Mr. Wilson, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, I just wanted to appreciate the bullet point that talks about the port coordinating with the city and the museum. I just happen to be on the museum board right now. We have a really pretty new parking lot. In the construction of that parking lot, it was tough on us because people had to park way around and walk. So just keeping us in mind would be much appreciated.
Absolutely. It's our CEO is also on that board, as you know. It's and we've been staunch financial supporters of the museum. I personally, my kids are there all the time. I mean, it's an institution that we want to see thrive. We suffice it to say, we worked really hard during that. It's never going to be perfect, but we put a lot of time and effort into managing traffic, and we'll continue the same.
Yeah. And what we got is much better.
Appreciate you saying that.
And I think the museum benefits from this development. It's another arrow in our quiver. People that go to that walk across the street,
That's exactly
go to the
right.
museum. So nothing but positive about it. Just
okay. Thank you. Yeah. The good news is I think for this phase of work, the museum parking and access should be unimpeded. I mean, all of this is off that site, so the pain is largely behind us, and I think now we can just reap the benefits of having a park once destination that serves multiple amenities, right? So that's the idea. We've got food trucks on our property. I mean, we're hoping that we can create a case where visitors, instead of spending 90 minutes at that location, are spending 4 or 5 hours, entire half of the day.
You bet.
So
Thank
thanks.
you.
Mr. Olivari, comment?
Questions? I just want to mention, I'm a little concerned about security. Are y'all going to be dealing with that down there?
Yeah,
Okay,
in
'cause
fact-
that's been and I'm concerned too about homeland security, about, when you're getting that close to ships and the openness about the opportunities for
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
So if I can just comment on that, we have, this may be common knowledge, perhaps not. We have our own police force. We've got 60 plus folks in our security department. We've been coordinating with our director of security and staff on site design from the onset. In fact, part of this final scope, the detailed design, includes looking back at lighting for security purposes. We're already contemplating what staffing and patrols look like. So we're very mindful of the security considerations there.
I'll tell you a story about the time that TxDOT wanted to go up on their own bridge and took pictures and got kicked off because of the opportunity to shoot at incoming ships. So it's becoming more and more an issue for us. Okay, I'll move along.
No, I appreciate that, but we're with you.
I would like to see somewhere in this a connection back to the, let's call it the Great Lawn and the Water Garden, and not just around, but I know there's some elevation changes in there, but it seems like to me that that's a real opportunity to connect if we can figure out some kind of safe pedestrian crossing maybe in the museum area so that you access that large lawn and the water garden. That's all I need to say. I'm sure you'll think about it, Jeff. I know you.
I am absolutely with you, and I know Jeff's a strong advocate for district level master planning down there. I think the absence of the Army Corps building when
when
that's gone.
Mention that they are moving out. You can't speak for them.
I cannot speak for them, but I think that we are closer to having that site in the public domain than we have been for decades. And if and when that happens, that's where all of this, including the water garden that's before you for consideration, gets tied in. I mean, that's where we have the chance to connect really what are now 4 or 5 disparate destinations into an amazing district. So
Well, I was very impressed that Matt said that, during COVID, they were even using that big lawn area for movies and things like that.
That's right,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity
Yeah.
down there. I am a little bit concerned about parking in that area. I think as we utilize more and more of this space which is good, but
if I can plant one more seed with y'all
Yeah.
for future consideration, we have on our south parking lot 400 spots and then another 158 or 60 in front of the Ortiz Center. We've already done all that hardscape. So the port capacity down there is over 550 spots.
But you have 200 people at your building, right?
We do, but I mean, I think most of this use is complementary. We have 150 in the building, but most of this use, I think, ends up being complementary. But ultimately, I mean, what we would like to do is talk about multi-layer structured parking on that south lot. There's plenty of space for it. We think that doing that in tandem with other stakeholders to co-fund structured parking on that south lot once the bridge is gone, serving multiple destinations down there. I mean,
This is a lot that is where we park now to go to Ortiz. I'm confused.
yes, that's right. If you look at it here, it's essentially right there. We striped and marked a crosswalk structurally to lead to the entrance to Harbor Point in anticipation of that redevelopment. So it's actually it's not far. It's an easy jump, and for me, that there's a unique opportunity for all of us with an interest down there, who shared owners of destinations to create as much capacity as we need structurally.
Which leads me to my next question. At one point, y'all were beginning to talk about a hotel down there. I think you even had some preliminary MOUs. Is that just a dead?
We are not under the existing water code. We are not authorized to on our property. We are not allowed to lease property or directly develop any.
But there was discussion about a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, we think the area would be well served. I think that the city-owned Triangle lot, which isn't shown here, that the Science Museum was using it as overflow parking. I mean, there's some property adjacent to that. There's some property that will come back to the port under the bridge right-of-way in here, which could present a similar opportunity adjacent to the water park. That is not, we completely put our pencils down on anything that.
Just to clarify, my understanding is y'all may not be able to develop it, but you can sell sites in which there will be a hotel developed. Nothing prohibits y'all from sale of property for hotel development.
I think technically that's true.
Okay.
Sold the property.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so
Just one final, pardon?
This was me. I was going to give you one little data point. Just if you look at the area in the core site and the old Columbus ship area,
right,
it's about 2 acres.
Oh yeah, here.
Which is about the size of the track the Omni is on.
Right there.
Okay. Yeah, if the core went away. Yeah, I mean, I think you need, they own more than it looks like from that building, as I recall. Working.
It gets very wide. They own
Yeah.
that entire,
Right.
most of that waterfront.
It's
There's
that.
that little triangle that's owned by the port, and then the rest of it is owned by the Corps of Engineers.
So this was the Columbus Ship area behind the Science Museum, and everything between in this wedge is Army Corps.
Mm-hmm. One final, I'm sure y'all will think about it with the wonderful work you're doing and all the input from Richter and others, but we have a lot of fine local sculptors. And I just, especially from an economic development point of view, when you bring this to, talking to us, I'd like to try to see that we are inclusive of them in whatever sculpture or outdoor art we're considering. So far, I haven't seen much.
So if you come visit the new building, we've got we've got 3 commissioned art pieces, all of them targeted local artists, and 4 of the 4 are local or regional. Out here, it'll be the same thing. We'll prioritize.
Okay.
And I've met with Olberg, if that's what you're suggesting. I mean, we're
Well,
all.
we have some common friends, and so they're going to
Yeah,
ask me, like,
so-
what about the local?
Yeah,
ordinance?
we want to showcase local talent wherever it's contextually
Right.
appropriate.
Thank you.
How's that?
That's it.
Thanks.
Mr. Vols?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So, Jeff, down here where it looks like this promenade at the bottom, below the Corps of Engineering.
Down here,
So would that be the city's, are you thinking that would be the city's project? To extend the seawall protection, basically?
I'm going to defer that question to y'all. I will just say this is the concept we got from the city back in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen several of the renderings related to the seawall and shoring up the seawall. So, Peter?
Yeah, Commissioner, that would be eligible, this area here, well, it's not circling, but the gray walkway was initially contemplated in the budget. We took it out in this most recent budget, not knowing the port was going to do this beautiful project. So now we're saying, you know what, maybe we want to come back and revisit the use of the seawall dollars to not only do the bulkheading and the flood protection, but add that amenity in partnership with the ports project and see if we can do a development agreement with the port so they can manage the entire project. So we have one contractor working in the area.
It would be nice to try and marry that project with the ports project so that they're somewhat completed at the same time.
That's what I'm saying. Well,
Okay.
they would be exactly done at the same time by the same company.
And then the port can pay for that, so.
Well, you notice Sean left, so.
Yeah.
Peter, that project right there was brought up by the Type A board back in 2014, 2015. We
Yes.
discussed, and
Right.
we're looking at about spending like $10 million to
Right.
redevelop that with the seawall levy.
Right. So right now we have 3 million in the budget for for the seawall only for the bulkheading. But what we're saying is we'd like to partner with the port to give additional dollars to have the amenities put in.
Jeff.
And have it done simultaneously by one company.
Depends what you mean by this. I mean, if the question is, would the port be willing to manage the procurement and the construction using city dollars, because that's all city property, in order to maximize synergies, I think we'd be very open to that. I think just to sort of level set with order of magnitude investment, the working opinion of probable cost on Harbor Point East for us is about $4.5 million. So and that's not, our commission so far has funded design. We will go back to them when we go to bid. I will go back to them and I will, I will try to wow them with all the great renderings, right? And we cannot commit a future commission to that. So, I mean, I think I'm reticent to necessarily suggest that we would expand that scope right now. I mean, not the scope of execution, the scope of the request to the port for support for the flood wall rehabilitation on city property. If it's a matter of whether we can offer in-kind assistance in the procurement and management of that with, Type A seawall funds supporting the project, I think we absolutely can talk about that. We're going out for bid anyway. We're going to be managing construction anyway.
Well, it would.
Follow-up question, Mr. Olivari?
Yeah,
Are you reading my mind?
yes, my understanding is that all that area in gray is not all city property.
None of it is city property.
Oh, yeah,
So
Army
the-
Corps.
The
Yeah,
city
sorry.
property ends at the existing,
Here.
Right,
This part's-
yeah.
where it
yeah.
cuts off at the art museum. So that is actually existing. It's about 75 feet wide.
Yeah,
but-
that's Army
It's-
Corps.
Property and Corpus.
Our property is this corner.
Yeah,
That's
right
it.
down there at the triangle is the port, and
This is
then
ours.
everything else is Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, and sorry, and I should mention, at one point, about a year and a half ago, our port director of real estate was assisting Keith Selman when he was here in coordination with the director of real estate for the Galveston district on an access agreement, because at that time, the scope of the city's project did still include this rehabilitation in front of the Army Corps. And so we actually we had some fairly advanced discussions with him, and he assured us that, with the real estate application, that the Army Corps would work with the city in that respect, and I don't think the application ever got filed. So
Yeah, we did a kind of fatal flaw analysis, and we found no fatal flaw. The Corps was willing to work with us on it, as
that's a
was
good
the
way to put it.
port. No.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for this presentation. I'm sorry, Jeff.
that's okay. I've been called worse today.
This is fabulous. We've been talking about, or I've been saying, hey, we use something like Pier 17 or something, but the vision that you have and the port is just phenomenal. I mean, this is going to explode for our community. It's going to be embraced with open, loving hands and hearts. It's just great for our community. I can't see past this screen with my glasses on, so I didn't even know Rosada or Mr. Strawbridge was even here. But, please extend our sincere thanks for coming down here today, and the port commissioners for committing to this project that's going to benefit all of the seawall area down here. It's going to go back to the art museum. It's just going to have all kinds of synergies they're going to build. It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be like the opening of Cole Park. The love that we felt by the community, it's going to be the same or better for this project. I'm just so looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for those comments. And
Thank you so
I'm
much.
sure our commissioners would love to hear the same from you if you were so inclined. Positive
We'd love to.
reinforcement's hard to come by these days, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Great job.
I've just heard that this may be, I'm not sure, that maybe Mr. Amaguir, is this potentially your last meeting before you and your predecessor and predecessor and predecessor, since I've been on the board, are leaving us for greener pastures? We'd like for you to come up and just, so we can give you thanks.
Are you tired from all the long presentations?
I mean, you set such a high bar, Randy. I don't know who could follow that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know who told you what happened. Yes, an opportunity presented itself, and interviewed and got the position offered to me last week. Like I've told my boss, Heather, here to my left, it's bittersweet. I've enjoyed my time in this position. I was asked to move here from what I originally got hired for, but just definitely a great support team from Heather to Amy, Constance behind me, Mr. Zanoni, just believing in the team there. So, I'm going to miss these board meetings. I'm going to miss coming up here, going in the almanac there for record presentations.
But you're staying with the city, right?
Yes, I'm still being here with the city. I'm moving on to the engineering department, supporting them. I'll be working for Ratna. I'm sure y'all familiar with her. So that's where I'll be. Same email. So if y'all have anything,
Randy, you can present the engineering presentation.
There you go.
Well, thank you for your service, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank y'all.
Is there a,
Dana Summers?
I'm sure I'll be able to help out if needed. Yeah. Yeah.
It makes sense now, Ms. Olamari, why we receive notifications throughout for the rest of the year. I was wondering why that happened. Now it's all coming to light. Like Randy sent us June and July. Ms. Summers?
Yeah, we will.
Before you go, though, did the fish pond tour get scheduled?
I'm still trying to get that one. I think I have both of y'all. I wanted to confirm with the developer for the end of this month. I got your times. I know Mr. Vol said he was good anytime. I don't think, Lee, you sent me yours yet.
Anytime.
Okay. And, yeah.
Yeah, I'll need to reply.
Yeah.
I need to look
So
at my
do
calendar.
we still, I've had a conflict come up, so should I send that to you?
Okay. Yeah, you can still come, and I'm still working with Heather. Nothing's gonna change.
Okay.
We'll get with y'all on all that stuff.
We'll for sure copy Heather now.
There you go.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank y'all.
Good luck.
Mr. Zanoni,
Well,
your comments?
That was going to be my comments. We're happy for Randy because it's a promotional opportunity. He's taking a higher position in our engineering department with Jeff Edmonds, so he'll still be here with the city, and that's something that we promote to those that we attract and hire here, which is this is a great organization to continue your career, both upward and across departments. And so Randy's a good example of that, where he's going from one department to another and moving up at the same time.
No doubt.
So we appreciate that, and I just want to thank Randy personally, and we look forward to his continued growth there professionally.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. With that, we'll close the meeting, 3:21. Thank you.
All right.